What is up, 3Interesting Things Nation?
Hello, everyone.
Name pending change. Okay, this is 3Interesting Things, and this isn't very interesting, so let's get on to the interesting stuff. Dad, number one.
All right. Thank you. Good. Let's do it. All right. We've got 3 interesting things for you guys today. I've got the first interesting thing. The first interesting thing I'd like to talk about is what I find interesting. And these are just kind of some brainstorming ideas of what we might talk about on this podcast, but also just on the topic of what I think is interesting and what I don't think is interesting. The things I get bored of talking about and the things I never tire of talking about. And I, of course, want to hear your thoughts as well, Miles. Okay, so here's some ideas. Oh, here's the very first one I wrote down was Shark Attack.
Shark attacks?
I mean, you're never going to skip a Shark Attack story. Like, every Shark Attack story is interesting to me.
But that's the number one thing.
Well, that was just the first thing that came to mind. That's not necessarily the number one thing. Okay, movies, of course. I love talking about movies, except I don't like horror movies, and I don't like straight action movies. I like gay action movies. Just kidding. If it's like
you don't discriminate.
No, I'm just saying if it's like just straight action, like just Fast and the Furious
like
or something.
Hard or something.
Yeah, no thanks. But if there's something to it, right? If it's like Jason Bourne, and so like it's a little bit interesting, I like to watch that. But anyway,
never actually seen Jason Bourne.
Oh, we should watch him.
Okay.
Well, the first couple are good.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, relationships are always interesting to talk about, both romantic relationships and also family. Like, I love big family dynamics. You know, I was actually looking the other day about all this birth order studies that they've done. You know, and like everybody fills a different role in their birth order.
So what's number 3?
So it's not necessarily number 3. What it is the second son in a big family, and they are the class clown. They are the people pleaser. They're the one that tries to make sure everything's fine and nobody's having any trouble. And those things describe me pretty well.
And I'm also the second son.
The second son in a big family.
Not a huge family.
Yeah, but still, the same rules kind of apply.
But,
you know?
like, not the exact as you. It's not, like, perfect.
No.
But it is you exactly.
Yeah. And they said it was really interesting, too, because they said, and I always have thought I've got a good sense of humor. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Miles, but they said, like, all these famous comedians, they're all like the second son in a big family.
You don't have to tell anyone that you think you have a good sense of humor.
Anyway, other things, just going through my list here, Miles. Don't want to take up too much of your time. Travel. I love to travel. And maybe sometimes on this podcast, if we've gone on a trip, we can just kind of give a little travel log, you know, about how the trip went and any tips that people might want about visiting that area, something like that. Survival stories. That's actually my second.
Those are awesome.
My second interesting thing today, that when I get to it, is going to be a survival story that I want to tell you about, and just stories in general. I love any well-told story, right? Like, as long as the story is told well. Like, a book that's written well. I don't care what the subject is, you know. I love tech. Futurology. I love talking about, like, what's tech going to look like 50 years from now.
Okay, what about, you just said I love tech. What current tech are you talking about? Are you talking about, like, latest cars? Are you talking about the latest headphones, the latest
No, I'm talking about AI. I'm talking about big ideas, right? I'm talking about when are self-driving cars going to take over and that sort of thing. That, you know, like really big shifts in society, not like individual tech items that I use in my own life.
Okay, yeah.
Religion, of course. I can never stop talking about religion. Growing up, I love talking about that time in your life. You know, like it's like one of the most interesting times in your life. And then, of course, getting older. I talk about that a lot and what that's like. So anyway, Miles, that's just kind of some ideas I had, some things that I'm always interested in. And that was my first interesting thing, was what interests me.
So the things I'm interested in is I really like the day-to-day tech. Like you were saying, big picture tech. Obviously, that's super interesting, but it's not always applying to me. Self-driving cars, I'm just learning to drive. Like, it doesn't apply to me, and it won't apply to me for years, so I don't care about it. I guess maybe that's because I'm young, so I don't care about things in the future. But I don't know. I really like, you should have told me to write these down.
No, this is just off the top of your head. And if you don't, I mean, if you just have one more or two more, like, you don't need a ton or anything.
something that I don't talk about very often, but I feel like I should talk about more and is a more interesting subject than I give it bounds to be, is words that nobody uses but should be used. I like using those words or phrases such as frankly and nevertheless, because people your age might use those words. I never hear anybody my age or like the valor in that heart or with such vigor. It's just words that aren't usually in people's vocabulary.
That's what interests you.
Yeah, I say them and I sound smarter.
Let's talk about some things Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I have one more thing.
Go, please.
Okay, another thing that's related to words is I like super random facts. And right now I'm into like health facts. I've just been watching YouTube videos about like random health or de-aging or something. And I use those facts to make up fake facts that I lie to my family and friends about. And then afterwards, maybe 2-3 minutes after I just told them a blatant lie, I go, yeah, I was lying earlier when I said that looking at screens 15 minutes before you go to bed destroys long-term memory storage. It's still bad for you. Part of it's true. Part of it is not true.
Which part? Miles, you can't just say that and then not tell us which part is true and which part isn't true. Well,
you shouldn't look at like blue light or screens or bright light 15 minutes before you go to bed because it like ruins your sleep pattern or something. That part is true. Nothing about long-term memory though.
Oh.
I said it makes you think that you're in day.
Why did you add that part?
Just so I can sound smarter, because I don't actually know how it works. So I'm just acting like I know how it works.
Miles, I think that's going to get you into some trouble at some point.
Trouble?
Yes.
How can I get in trouble if everybody likes me?
Miles, I wish that it were as easy as that, okay? Plenty of likable people have ended up ruined, Miles, for much less than that.
Okay. Things we dislike. I'll go first.
Not dislike. Things you are not interested in talking about. I'll go first. Okay, so here's some things I'm not interested in talking about. Never interested in talking about cars. I'm not a car guy. I don't know anything about them. I don't want to have a conversation about your favorite car or a problem with a car. Like, I just don't care.
Do you like talking about lies?
Lies?
Yeah, like I was just talking about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Of course.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I want to talk about lies?
I don't know. No reason.
I love to talk about things if someone has a difference of opinion than I do or they believe in something different than I do. Like if you come to me and say, I believe that there's a spirit that lives in this house and I can talk to that spirit and all this stuff. And we can have an open dialogue about that. And what does that mean?
Are we doing things we don't like to talk about? Are you getting to something that you don't like to talk about?
I'm lost right now, I guess.
Okay. Something that I don't like to talk about is... everything interests me if you go deep enough into it. Surface level things, I don't like.
And any subject can be really interesting if you kind of get down into what makes it interesting, right?
Okay, my interesting thing. So last year, when I joined speech and debate, the first meeting we ever had, we played this game. And it was just like a time filler. And we each went around and we each talked for a straight minute without stopping or using filler words. And you can do any subject, and I was thinking maybe we use one of these subjects that you said you liked.
Okay.
We have a timer right here.
Oh, and so you'll do this and then I'll do this?
And then you'll do this, and I'll cut the boring
And what's the
parts
point of the exercise?
To formulate speech quicker in your brain.
And am I going to do shark attacks or am I going to do something
No, you
different?
can do anything you want.
All right.
Home decor.
Okay.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. So earlier you were talking about how home decor, how things can be interesting if you look at them deep enough. And I was thinking, just looking around this room, something in this room is home decor. And on the surface, it doesn't seem like it's that interesting. Then you go deeper and you think, what even makes that interesting? And what makes it interesting is color palettes, I think. I only made it 30 seconds.
So are you supposed to start over?
I'm done. No, I'm done. Okay, it's your turn.
Because you couldn't make it that long?
Couldn't make it that long.
All right, well, my topic is going to be getting older. As you age, it doesn't really feel like anything's changing. In my mind, I'm still 28 years old. And
You had a tiny little earlier too.
That's way harder than you think.
It's so hard.
Wow. Like the parameters of the game just make your brain freeze.
I
for
know.
some reason.
Or it's just you're not talking with somebody. So the moments when you don't have anything to say, somebody else has something to say, and they pick up the conversation. But here, it's you just talking. What's the third interesting thing?
Okay, we're on to the third interesting thing.
Yeah.
Okay, the third interesting thing, I teased it earlier. I told you I was going to tell you about a survival story. But first I want to talk about all of these new health fads. And a lot of it has to do with getting older, which I was about to talk about a minute ago, but I couldn't do it without saying and trying to slow down the aging process. One of the big parts of this research, if you can stress your cells, then it turns on a survival mechanism which is actually very beneficial to you and repairs you in a way that you don't get unless you're in a very stressful situation.
And that's what intermittent fasting is.
That's what intermittent fasting is. That's what cold plunges are. That's even, to some extent, what high-intensity interval training is, you know? So it's all of these different sort of health fads that are going on right now. So I tried intermittent fasting. I've done a couple of different 36-hour water fasts. It's really interesting when you finally, you know, we're such consumers, especially in America, and we eat so much junk food, and we eat too much junk food in our family.
Yeah.
And we're a relatively healthy family, but we still eat too much junk food.
We eat healthy, but then we cancel it out with the junk food that we eat.
Yes, and I just feel like we actually don't even know what we're hungry for or what we like because we get way too much sugar, we get way too many carbs, you know what I mean? We eat way too much meat. And so it's like we don't even know what we actually like because we're always just drawn to the fattiest, meatiest, sugariest, sweetest thing.
Can I say something before we go on? So previously, we haven't uploaded in a little bit because we were trying to go backpacking. We actually did go backpacking yesterday, and I was so hungry after it, and we finally sit down and we're having lunch. And I bite into some bread, and it's just the best thing I've ever had.
Absolutely.
That bread was so good. And then I had like a Pop-Tart and sugar snap peas afterwards, and the Pop-Tart was not nearly as good as the bread or the sugar snap peas, because that's what your body actually
craving needed. That's right.
What your actually needs.
But you didn't know that until you were hungry. That's what I'm saying is one of the problems, and I mean I'm as guilty as anybody. I eat when I'm not hungry. No, I never get hungry enough to actually know what my body is wanting until I started doing these 36-hour fasts. And then at the end of the fast, I felt more in tune with my body and with what types of foods it was really craving. Anyway, the story I wanted to tell you was about this Mexican fisherman whose name was Jose Salvador Alvarenga. And this was a couple of years ago, and he was out in his boat fishing, and he got swept out to sea. And he was lost at sea on this boat for 14 months. It was actually 438 days. That's the name of the book. And the book's written by a guy named Jonathan Franklin. So he lived out there, Jose did, for 14 months all by himself on the boat. And he caught some fish, but really what he caught more than anything was seabirds, because they would fly around his boat, they would land on his boat, and he would just catch them and kill them. And when he was at his very hungriest, he would open the bird immediately, and he would go right for these vital organs, the liver and the kidney and the heart and things like that. And the author of this book, Jonathan Franklin, he was telling this story about the fisherman Jose. And then he also interviewed a scientist who explained that just what we're talking about, right? The reason that he went for those organs, and he said that they tasted so delicious to him, is because they had the exact nutrients that his body needed while he was in that starvation mode. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting and something to kind of think about in our own lives, right? If we just slow down, don't eat so much processed food, don't eat so much stuff that's so sweet and that's so fatty and delicious, then we can actually understand what our bodies need for real. Anyway, that's it.
Well, 3 Interesting Things Nation. See you soon.
See you next time, guys.